Hi, I'm Dora, and let me tell you right now that I can't believe that something like this happened in my family. One day I came back to my house and saw our town priest in my house talking to my parents. They looked all very serious while they were having their conversation. After they finished, my dad went upstairs and my mom stayed with the priest in the living room. I could hear that they were talking about something. I couldn't hear everything because they were whispering. Then she gave the priest a handful of cash. I saw him smirking at her like a little devil. And then he touched her leg, and she hugged him. I wanted to gag. What the actual... I eventually gave up on the eardropping and went to my room. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. I woke up the next day, unable to get my mind off what I saw. So I lied and told my mom that I was going to school, but I skipped school, and I headed to the local church. I saw the priest wandering around in the church, and after a while, he entered the confession room. I followed him, and I entered the room across from him. I began by telling him, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been a while since my last confession." To which he replied, "Go on, my daughter." I then told him that last night I saw my mom sinning with a man other than my father, and that I was planning to hurt that person really badly. The priest seemed quiet for a moment, but then he told me that sometimes our loved ones make mistakes and that we shouldn't take matters into our own hands. But then I interrupted him and screamed, "Consider this a warning, you jerk!" I stormed out of the room in a hurry. Luckily, he didn't see me. Days passed, and I was sure that I had handled this problem and that it was done. But days later, I was shocked to see that the priest had visited our house again. This time, it was still very early in the morning, and my dad wasn't home. I sneaked into our backyard and tried to peep through the window where they were. I was tiptoeing, trying to see what they were doing. It was very hard to see anything, but I took a glimpse and saw them passionately kissing. Oh my God! I was so shocked that I actually fell down and made a noise. My mom came to check where the noise came from and saw me hiding there. She was so angry, and she started screaming, "Here is my troubled girl I told you about." I'm the troubled one? She's the one who was making out with a priest a moment ago. I then looked into my mother's eyes, and I called her, which made her even more angry. And before I knew it, I felt the priest's hand grab me, and he dragged me aggressively to the living room. He then started mumbling all these prayers in Latin. Honestly, he sounded crazy as hell. He then splashed me with stinking water and told my mom, "Holy water should shoo the devil out of her." And then he left. Mom then told me that I was grounded for calling her a and I went to my room. I was planning to keep my mom's secret for the sake of her marriage, but now that she was treating me like crap about it, there was no way I'd give her a break. I had to expose them. But I couldn't just tell my father. He would never believe me. As I was in class planning my revenge, the principal announced that we will have the priest coming to our school to make a speech. My school is religious, so we often have someone coming to from the church. I thought this would be my chance. What if I could make my mom come to the school, and I will get the priest, and I will make them talk? And that's when I came up with this plan. Of course, my mom would have to come to school if her daughter did something bad. So, while the priest was doing his speech, I started calling him bad names and throwing paper at him, and I even made him slip and fall in front of the whole school. The principal was very mad and even wanted to expel me from school and call my mom to come and pick me up, but the priest said, "No, no need. I'm fine and no one got hurt." She didn't mean that. Ugh, seriously? I thought in my head. The principal agreed and let me off with only a detention for a week. I got back home from school, and my mom said that tomorrow we will go to the church because it is my parents' anniversary. Ugh, not again? I was tired of seeing that ugly priest every day. We got to the church and we went inside and sat. We arrived just in time for the church service. During the prayer, I started to think that maybe I was wrong and that the whole thing was just a big misunderstanding. But when I looked up, I saw the priest winking at my mother during the service. I looked at my mom straight away and saw a nasty smile on her face. What a sneaky woman! How did my dad not notice them? Is it just me? Like, how could it be? At that moment, I couldn't control the anger in me, so I yelled in front of everyone, My mother and the priest are having an affair! Everyone looked at me with shock. My parents stood up immediately, and as my mom dragged me out of the church, I could hear her saying, "Sorry, everyone, my daughter didn't take her medication today." When we arrived home, Mom forced me to go to my room. I gladly did because I didn't want to see her face. After 2 hours, I wanted to get out to get something to eat. I tried to open the door, but then I noticed that my mother had locked me inside. I started screaming and beating at the door. "I'm hungry!" I yelled, but then I heard a noise coming to my room. I thought that my parents came to open my door, but then my mom started screaming in a really scary voice. She screamed and hit my door. She called me ugly names and told me that I should die. My dad was laughing loudly in the background. I was so afraid that I actually went inside my bed, hid under the sheets, and closed my ears. I don't know how much time passed before I woke up, but when I did, I noticed that there was food left near my bed. I didn't want anything from them, but I was seriously hungry. When I took the first bite, I snapped as my mom stormed in the room. She said, "I prepared food for you so you can take your medication." In her hand, she had lots of pills that looked terrifying. "Swallow this," she said as she started to force the pills into my mouth. I screamed that I don't want to. And I grabbed the chicken steak on my plate and I threw it in her face. So she called my dad. He came storming in. I can't remember what happened after they gave me the pills. I slept and woke a while after. I woke up in a strange room. I didn't know where I was. I then heard noises coming from downstairs. I knew I must run away as fast as possible. I got out of the window. I ran fast. I did not even look back. I ran and ran and ran until I was too tired to move. But then I realized that I don't know where I should go. I felt scared, betrayed, sad, and just didn't know what to do. But one for sure was that I will not be going back to my parents. I was walking in this neighborhood, and then I saw a house that looked very familiar. I remembered that my childhood friend lives here, so I decided to stay at his house. He was the only person I had left that I trust. I arrived at his place, but I couldn't knock on the door because I didn't want to wake his parents up. I knew a way to climb to his room. I climbed on this branch that was close to his window and went inside. Samuel was asleep. I didn't want to wake him up, so I laid next to him in bed quietly and fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up to Samuel screaming hysterically. "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" I said, It's me, Samuel, relax. You'll wake your parents up." But he didn't relax, and he started calling his parents nonstop. I was confused, thought he was my friend. I didn't want to get in trouble with his parents, so I jumped out of the window and ran away. I was so upset at this point. I felt like no one wanted me around anymore. But then, I started thinking about how my problem had started, and I started making the connection. It was the priest's fault. He knew everyone in town, and they all respected him. He must have been convincing everyone that I was possessed or something because I exposed his secret. I had to find that priest. First, I had to buy something to eat with the little money I had. I went inside a grocery store and I saw Jasper, my friend from school, working as a cashier. He saw me, yelled, "OMG, is that you, Dora?" And then he hugged me. I started crying in his arms. He was the only person who was nice to me since a long time. So I decided I was going to tell him my big secret. I found out that my parents are not my real parents. I think they adopted or kidnapped me. They are abusing me for reasons I don't know, and I am trying to find my real parents. Jasper seemed shocked. He gave me food and told me to wait for him 1 hour until his shift is over. He promised me that he will help. I waited for an hour and a half, but Jasper never showed up. I thought he bailed on me. When I was about to leave, I felt a hand grab me, and then Jasper said, "Let's go." I told Jasper that if anyone knew where my real parents were, it would be the priest. I don't know why I thought that, but I had a strong feeling about it. We got on the train and he sat next to me, and he hugged me the whole time. I cried as I told him about all the bad things that were happening to me lately. He dried my tears and said that he is here for me and that I shouldn't worry. I thought about kissing him at that moment, but I stopped myself. But then I looked up, and he was staring into my eyes, and then he kissed me. We were interrupted when the train doors opened. He grabbed my hand tightly and led us out of the train. As we arrived at church, I told Jasper that we should go inside. There were a few people getting ready for the service that was about to start. And when I looked around, I saw him. The priest! OMG! I found him! I told Jasper to hold my stuff while I go closer. When I was close enough, I pulled out a knife from under my jacket with a quick move. I hit the priest. Well, almost. Jasper's hand was holding my wrist, and then he screamed, "What are you doing?" Everything around me after that seemed blurry, and then I passed out. I woke up next to find myself in the hospital tied up. My parents came in and sat beside me. They started explaining to me that I was suffering from a disorder called schizophrenia and that I was hallucinating and imagining stuff the whole time because I wasn't taking my medication. They said that everything I told Jasper about them not being my real parents, abusing me, and the evil priest were just thoughts I created in my head, and none of it was true. After hearing this, I started sobbing. Both of them hugged me while I cried and apologized for what happened. Shortly after, they left the room and told me to get some sleep and rest. I asked if they could untie me before they leave, and they happily did that for me. Of course, I was not a fool. Their people were professional liars. I just wanted to give myself some time before I planned my next escape.
Hi, my name is Alexa, and I discovered what my brother's girlfriend was really up to the whole time she was with him. You're probably wondering what that has to do with me. Well, let's just say that I was the reason she stabbed him in the back. The beginning of this story is a little awkward. It all started with my own insecurity. You see, I'm 17 and I've never been in a relationship with someone like ever. The guys who usually ask me out were losers, so I just turned them down one after the other. However, one day, something changed. Someone actually caught my attention big time, but I didn't know who it was. It all began when I started to receive these love letters. I thought a lot about who it could be. I was eager to know, especially because I was kind of falling for this person. You must think that this all sounds like the beginning of a beautiful love story. Well, I was naive enough to think so too, because the truth is that when I discovered the identity of the person I was falling for, I wanted to disappear off the face of the earth. So all this chaos started when someone began to slip blue love letters into my bag at school. I knew they were for me because at the end of each letter, my name was always surrounded with red heart-shaped symbols. I couldn't help but picture who it could be and who I wanted it to be. I secretly hoped it was Mark, a cute boy in my class and one of my brother's close friends. Anyway, I'm in the 11th grade with my twin brother Alex. We go to the same school, we're in the same class, so I'm pretty much stuck with him forever. And I'm kidding though. The truth is that I love him very much and I don't know what I would do without him. A few months ago, Alex started dating Mary, a girl he had a crush on for ages. He asked her out and she said yes. She was very beautiful and way out of my brother's league. I had no clue how she even agreed to date him. Anyway, Mary and I became close friends after she started seeing my brother. She came to our house a lot, and when they went out, she was always kind enough to invite me along. But, I hated to be the third wheel, so I usually said no. I didn't feel that lonely, though, because I was receiving the best love letters every single week. I remember the first letter well. It was blue and had Alexa boldly written on it. It read, "Reading this letter, you might be wondering what's wrong with me. Why I'm writing a letter to you. I wanted to tell you these words, but since I am unable to now, I am happy I can at least express it through my words. I love you." Anyone looking at me at that exact moment when I was reading the letter would probably have been wondering why I was grinning from ear to ear. I couldn't help it. I was deliriously happy. I read the letter more than 10 times, until I could recite every word written on it without looking at it. From that day onwards, I started to get more blue letters, one each week. The way he wrote was pretty amazing. I felt like I was really falling for him and like I had butterflies in my stomach. I was writing letters back to him and leaving them each time in the place he asked me to. Most importantly, I wasn't shy about spilling my feelings. I had strong feelings for him and I expressed them in my letters. Of course, I asked him to reveal his identity, but he wrote that he was hesitant because he was close to my brother and he felt that I was going to reject him because of it. This only confirmed my suspicions. It had to be Mark, my brother's close friend. I used to notice him staring at me in class, but now the whole picture was becoming clear. I wrote back in the letter, "I don't care if you're close to my brother, knowing who you are will mean the world to me." 2 days passed since I wrote that message, and I never got a response back. I thought that Mark had chickened out on me because he didn't want to involve my brother. I was sitting in the living room feeling pretty sad when my brother and Mary were about to go out. They noticed that I was upset, but I refused to tell them what was going on. Mary then insisted I should go with them, so I'd cheer up a bit. I'd already told them a million times before that I don't like being the third wheel. But then she said that I wouldn't be this time because Mark was joining too. What? Yes! Finally something was happening that might bring us together in real life. I was super excited as I waited for him, but Mark never showed up. So once again, it was just the three of us. I was so upset. I hated Mark in that moment, and I decided I wouldn't respond to his letters ever again. A few days later, I was placing some of my books in my locker and preparing to go home for the day when I noticed a blue letter I had missed. I hesitated about opening it, but I couldn't stop myself. It said that he wanted to meet me in the girls' bathroom. I didn't even think why he would choose such a place. I just quickly shut my locker and raced there. Upon entering, I was surprised to see Mary, and I quickly told her that my secret admirer was going to meet me here and that she needed to go. I was still trying to explain it to her when she told me that she knew all about it. I was surprised and I didn't know how she could have. She then went on to tell me that she was the secret admirer and that she had been the one writing the blue letters. Of course, I thought she was joking and I laughed and I told her that she could stop fooling around because he would be here any moment now. The joke wasn't funny when she brought out more letters with blue envelopes, and I had no choice but to believe her when she showed me her handwriting. I understood, but my heart still found it hard to believe. I mean, she was my brother's girlfriend, for goodness sake. Mary then told me that she loved me and she was only dating my brother to get close to me. She told me that it was me she really loved and that she thought I could love her too, especially as I had never dated anyone before. Just as I was trying to tell her that I wasn't interested in her, the door suddenly burst open and my brother charged in. He had an angry expression on his face, but he didn't yell when he spoke. He said that he'd been looking for both of us when he'd heard our voices in the hallway. He asked Mary if she really meant what she'd said to me, and she said she did. I felt bad for being the reason that they broke up. After we got home, we talked about it, and my brother said even though he was heartbroken, I'd played no part in it all, and he couldn't blame me for everything. And he said he should have noticed that she wasn't that into him. I agreed with him and said that I should have picked up on the fact that Mary was into me. It still felt weird, though, that the person that I had feelings for was my brother's girlfriend. But I guess sometimes weird stuff like that can happen.